Podcast. Jebuth. All right, so I used to go out with this chick, and she was cool. But she was known, or at least I knew, that she had 3 nipples. 2 on one and 1 on the other. The third one was like a little side thing off the end, hanging off, dangling in the wind. But it was the coolest thing about her. I was with her once at this party. There was some dude, skinny, Jewish-looking kid. He had a shirt on, I remember it said, "I love scrawny white guys." And he was trying to bet the owner of the house, it was over at the beach, it was a decent house, that he could suck his own dick. And at the time, I'd never heard of such a thing. Didn't think anything of it. I just heard it passing in conversation. Night goes on, and this fool's sitting on the couch in the middle of the room, blowing himself. He got his $100. I thought it was the weirdest fucking shit I'd ever seen. And I go on with my life. Now, the girl with 3 nipples, she was cool. But one day, she went and surgically had the 3rd nipple removed. And I immediately broke up with her. I was not going to be with somebody who used to have 3 nipples. The fact that she had 3 nipples, I thought was the coolest thing I'd ever heard of. And since she had it removed, our terms were now over. Fast forward, 6 months later, walking through the mall is the dude who could blow himself and the chick who used to have 3 nipples, holding hands, whistling Dixie. Match made in heaven. Finished a couple books recently. Sex, Drugs, and Cocoa Puffs by Chuck Klosterman. Fantastic. It's kind of a book for my generation. Generation X. It goes over everything from the real world to the villains and cereal commercials, and a great read. A collection of essays. Yeah. I used to date some chick, not the one with 3 nipples, but she was reading it once and I never forgot it. I saw it in the bookstore. I had to grab it and I loved it. It's a good read. Check it out. Also, I finished it's a super small poetry book, Teaching My Mother to Give Birth by Warsan, Shire. She's from Europe, immigrant from Africa. It's great. Fantastic. I read it on some poetry site that it was highly recommended, so I bought it. Just like a chat book, real small, but fantastic way of rhythmic poetry. I liked it. I've been knocking out a ton of movies. I just finished... Last night I finished the Tom Arnold classic, The Stupids. I forgot how freaking hilarious it was. It's so bad. It's so good. I just finished like 2 minutes ago a movie that was released like during the pandemic, Kilroy, which is kind of like a blood in, blood out American Me. You know, the new one in that same vein. I liked it. I mean, I love those kind of movies. And it kind of breaks down the prison system, putting the green light on drive-bys and, you know, finding Jesus. Good stuff. It's kind of funny. They're like filming like LA in the 60s and all the extras are all tatted up like on their necks and stuff. And it's funny because like in all the American Me's and Blood In, Blood Outs, like the essays from way back then never had neck tats. So I guess the extras, they couldn't find any, but I noticed that. But besides that, it's a great flick. I'd check it out if I were you. Also, I was just going through my movies. I own a ton of movies, and it's been knocking them out recently. But I picked up, just randomly, I had it on my shelf, Eagle Eye with Shia LaBeouf. It's really good. I mean, I didn't even think it would be that good. I just put it on, like, whatever, but it had my heart pumping, and it was a good movie. You should check it out. And then, when Criterion Collection had their sale recently, I picked up a bunch of movies. So one of the first ones I watched out of what I picked up was the Man Push Cart, which is like an indie film in New York after 9/11 about the guys that, work in the carts, the push carts, and sell coffee and stuff. Super cool indie flick. I watched all the special features, and super interesting always, to see how they made it and their trials and tribulations, what they had to do to get it through. Definitely would recommend it. It's kind of a little bit different flavor than any other movie out there, but definitely worth a glimpse. Besides that, last night I watched Without Limits. Again, a movie I owned, had no idea about. I have to say, one of the greatest sports movies I've ever seen. I forgot how much I love sports movies when they're good. It's about a track star, Stephen Prefontaine from Oregon. He went to Eugene, or the University of Oregon. And he was in the Olympics in the 70s and fought the AAU, their bribery and all that. But super fast dude and just a cool story. Worked his ass off and kind of did things his own way. But the movie had me totally rooting for him. And I can't remember another movie where, spoiler alert, like the main dude doesn't win the championship or whatever. He actually doesn't win and then dies in a car crash, and it's like, geez Louise. But super good. I know they made another movie, I think just called Prefontaine, but within a year there was two that came out. Without Limits is the one that I watched. I didn't even watch the other one, and I never really heard of the dude, but his coach is the guy who kind of designed the first Nikes, ironically, which is always interesting when you see stuff like that. So, on a side note, where the girlies at with 3 nipples? I'm not talking Total Recall. Talking 2-on-1. Bah, 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 bah. Watch out for the scrawny white dudes. They're always trying to make money doing weird shit. Read more books. Stay amazing. Breathe deep. Podcast Jebuth.